Welcome again, dear children. This is video part 3 of lesson 15, active and passive voice. Now, in video part 1 and 2, we had learned how to change statements from active to passive. Now, this video will cover how to change the other types of sentences. You already know types of sentences like, right? Statement, then imperative, negative, interrogative, then some sentences have modals. So how to change those into their passive voice? This we will learn in this video. Children, the sentence in active voice has structure like this, means the helping verbs, auxiliary verbs like has, have, had, is, am, are, was, or were are followed by to. Then we simply have to insert be to change them into passive voice, like it has been done here. Just read this example number 1. We have to learn English. So of course, those usual steps we have to do. Object will become subject and subject will become object. So here in passive voice will begin with English has to be learned, right? By us is not required. Why? We learn this rule in the next slide. Okay. Right now you understand this. Now the active voice had, I will write A for active and I will write P for passive so that you understand. Now in passive voice, the subject is English. English is a singular subject. So it will take has and not have. These changes have to be done. And you should be very much aware of these changes because before voice, we've completed subject-verb agreement. So these rules should be on your tips of subject-verb agreement. Now let's take another example. She has to help us, right? So has is followed by to. So the only thing we have to do is insert be just after to. So we have to be helped by her. She is a singular subject, so it's going to take has, and we is a plural subject, so it will take a plural verb have. Now, how to change sentences with modal auxiliaries? Very, very simple. Let's see. If a sentence has modal auxiliaries like can, could, shall, should, may, might, will, would, and must, plus the root form of the verb in the active voice, we just have to add be after the modal verbs to change it into passive. For example, she can speak English. Can is a modal auxiliary here. So we will simply add be after it. Chinese can be spoken by her. Take the second example. We must preserve the tigers. Must is here, which is a modal auxiliary. So we will simply insert be after it in the passive voice. So tigers must be preserved. By us, again I'm telling you, it is not required. Why? There is a rule related to it. You will get to learn in next coming up slides. Okay. Now, in case a sentence is having a modal auxiliary with helping verbs like have, okay. So basically combination of modal auxiliary plus have. Then we simply have to insert been after this combination. Let's take this example. He should have stolen my pen. My pen should have been. Simply add been after this combination and you have changed active voice into passive voice. So easy, children. Now what you have to do is learn these rules, the structure, and it's going to be very, very easy. Write it in a piece of paper, not piece of paper, make a nice chart of rules and learn them by heart. The next example is they must have left any sign. So this is a combination of modal auxiliary and have. We simply have to insert been. Any sign must have been left. Again, by them we will not write. There is a rule for it. So you needn't write by them. It is understood. So children, here is the rule which I was talking to you about. that if the subject in the active sentence, active voice is we, they, someone, somebody, none, nobody, everybody, and people, then what we do is we do not add by subject in the passive voice. Now, again, let's understand with the help of an example. The first sentence is they have stolen my pen. So here the subject is they. So this rule applies, right? So my pen will become the subject of the passive voice. My pen has been stolen. Been again related to the rule that if the sentence is of perfect tense, then we have to add been, right? So my pen has been stolen. Now we need not write by them because the subject in the active voice is they, right? Take the second example. People must have left any sign. This is active voice, right? The passive is any sign must have been, again been because the active voice is in perfect tense. So any sign must have been left by them is not required in passive voice. You need not add. If you do not add, it will not be considered as wrong because the subject in the active voice is people. Now, what about negative sentences? Negative sentences remain the same, but we have to keep the rules related to tenses into consideration. We have to keep them in mind. Like they have not stolen my pen has not been stolen. Now, again, the rule which was there in the previous slide by them is not required. Okay. Then people must not have left any sign. Here again, subject is people, right? And it is a negative sentence. So the passive voice will be this is active. The first sentence student in all the slides are active and the second sentence is passive everywhere. I have missed out writing and mentioning it, but never mind. I'll write it now. Okay. So the passive will be any sign must not have been left by people is not required. Okay. By people is not required. Then nobody has done homework. Nobody, again, the rule which was there in the previous slide will be applicable here. Homework has not been done by nobody. No need to write this, right? Homework has not been done will be the passive voice. Now, what about yes no type of questions? First of all, just let us recollect what are yes no type of questions. Yes no type of questions are those which begin with a helping verb. As you can see, all of them begin with a helping verb. Now, I have written the rule of sentences or yes no type of questions. Suppose a yes no type of question begins with do or does, then it's passive. Simple, very simple rule. You just have to replace do or does with am, is, are, depending on the subject that follows. Okay, so you will get to understand with an example. But let me tell you the rule. If the helping verb is past tense, did, then it will be obviously replaced by one of the verbs which are used in past tense, helping verb, right? For example, did you help him? Now, did is a verb in the past tense. So it can either be replaced by was or were, right? Now, since was is immediately followed by he is a singular subject. Yes, so it will be preceded by was. Was he helped by you? And interrogative sentences will remain interrogative only, right? So the passive, this is passive sentence and this is active. Let's move on to the next example. Can you speak English? This is the active sentence. Now can is a modal. So if it's a modal, it's going to remain the same. Can English be spoken by you? This is passive voice. Can will not become could children because we cannot and we should not change the tense of the active sentence. Tense should remain the same. There is no change in the tense, and also meaning of the sentence should also not change. That is why we replace did with the past form of the verb, and we replace do and does with present forms of the verbs like am, is, are. Okay, the last example, has he helped them? Now has, he, here has is singular because he is a singular subject which is following has. Now here note the change. Have they been helped by him? Why have? Because they is a plural subject and plural subject takes a plural verb, that is have. I hope you are following whatever I'm trying to explain it to you. Your teachers also must have explained, but you need to go through this video again and again. You will not find these rules anywhere else, children, at one place. A few more examples of yes no type questions. Now, didn't he buy anything? It's a negative question, right? Questions can also be negative. So the rule will remain the same. Did will be replaced by was, right? So was plus not contraction is wasn't. Wasn't anything bought by him? By will become bought. V3 form of the verb. The other rules remain the same. Subject, object, object, subject, and V3 form of the verb. Let's look at the second example. Will he bring the book? So this is future tense. Future tense will remain future only. We cannot change the tense. So will cannot be replaced by would. It will remain the same. Will the book be brought? Brought is V3 form of the verb by him, and here we get its passive voice. Now, are they planting trees? Are is already present, right? Are cannot be replaced by any other verb because are itself is helping to form yes no type of questions. So are will remain are. Are they planting trees? Are trees being planted? By them is not required again, because if you remember, there is a rule that if the subject is they, then by them is not required. Now the last example. Do they tell anything? Do they tell anything? So the answer is anything told by them? Because again, do can either be replaced by am or is or are. So now anything here is considered as singular. So it will be preceded by is. Now after yes no type of questions, we should also know passive of WH questions, right? Now who is a special case? A special treatment required by who? Who questions are changed in two ways. We can change them in two ways. Who opened the door? So the first choice is who was the door opened by? And the second is by whom was the door opened? So if we begin the passive sentence with by, then who will change to whom? Okay. Now let's take the examples of other WH words, WH questions. Why are they planting trees? Simple. Why are trees being planted? Why being? Because it is present continuous tense, right? So continuous tenses, we have to write, we have to write, or we have to add being in it. The second example, active voice. What did they tell you? What were you told? Okay. Now did will change to were. Yes, the same rule. If the interrogative sentence has did, it will be replaced by was and were only. Now why were here? Because you is treated as a plural pronoun and you always takes were. The last type is imperative sentences. Very, very simple, children. Begin all the imperative sentence by let. Okay. All the passive voice of imperative sentences can begin with let. For example, the first example is open the door. Okay. So we will definitely begin it with let. Let the door be opened. Now, of course, the swapping of subject and object has to be done. So the door will become the subject in the passive voice. And let the door Be is an additional word that we've added, and opened is V3 form of the verb. So what is the structure? Let plus object, object of the active voice, plus be plus V3 form of the verb. Okay. Second example is let him open the door. Now we have an additional word him, right? So the passive voice will be let the door be opened by him. Since we have subject in the active voice, we can write and we should write the object in the passive voice, right? Now the change, this structure is a little different than the structure of the first sentence. Let plus object, okay? Then object will be followed by be, then V3 form of the verb, and of course by plus subject of the active voice. Now let's take up a small exercise, some examples. Did you teach us? She has to prepare food. Who told you about the accident? And people are destroying the jungle. What do you think are the answers going to be? Let's check. The answers are were we taught by you? Interrogative sentences remain interrogative sentence. Okay. So did will be replaced by were. Okay. And V3 form of the verb teach is taught. She has to prepare food. This is a normal statement of present perfect. So food has to be, and of course the rule that if has, have, had or am, is, are followed by to, then we just have to insert be after it. So the food has to be prepared by her. Who told you about the accident? So the answer is going to be by whom were you told about the accident? Children, this particular question will have only one passive voice. You remember in the previous slide I told you that interrogative sentences which begin with who can have or may have two passive voice. But this sentence cannot have the other passive form. The last is people are destroying the jungle. So the jungle is being destroyed. Children, with this we come to the end of the topic active and passive voice. I am sure you all have understood, and now you're going to learn the rules related to active and passive voice. Also a reminder, please do the activity which was mentioned at the end of video part 2. Okay, thank you.